هذا عقيدة أهل السنة. This is the belief of Ahl Sunnah. Iman and righteous actions. It's not just a concept that I believe, as some of us Muslims may think that as long as you just say I believe. It's far deeper than that. Real belief of Ahl Sunnah is that that belief begins to profess, begins to be shown, begins to be implemented, that you're trying to live a life of a believer. That's the other concept of faith that you find around us, that I'm a Christian, or I'm a Jew, whatever it may be. It's a personal relationship. That's what some Muslims are falling into, that Islam is a personal relationship. It's not a personal relationship. Inside your heart, when you're standing in prayer, it's a personal relationship. But coming to the masjid is a testimony of faith. Whoever visits the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frequently, testify that person has Iman. Man salla al-Bardayn, dakhala al-Jannah. Whoever offers the 2 cold prayers enters paradise. The 2 cold prayers being Salatul Fajr and Salatul Isha. Read through all the hadith in great detail. What do you find? Wajabat lahu al-Jannah, adman lahu fil Jannah, lahu al-Jannah, ghurisat lahu fil Jannah, lahu fil Jannah. Person will have in paradise, will be given in paradise, promised in paradise, planted in paradise, I guarantee for him in paradise. Study all those hadith. And all of them, what do you find? Action. All of them you find action. Study them in great detail. All of them are linked that you do this, paradise. You do this, you get paradise. Control what's between your 2 jaws and between your 2 legs. Adman lahu. I guarantee for him a place in paradise. Words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even if you dissect this hadith in today's language and understand it, you find the average Muslim youth can't control his private parts. The average Muslim who even claims to know about Islam can't control his tongue. Ghiba min al-kaba'ir. Backbiting, brothers, isn't a minor sin. Min al-kaba'ir, amongst the major sins. Amongst the major sins. And some of us take it something trivial. Qu'il, qu'Allah, this and that, you speak ill about people. That's in the Muslim world. You know, there's a great bigger politics that exists in the Muslim world. Obviously, they can't disclose in this arena at this stage, but that exists. And the other half of the Muslim globe that you find, the Muslim youth, can't control themselves. So he was able to control that small amount of flesh in both areas, guaranteed paradise. Action, life of perseverance, of control, of commitment. Thus Imam Nawawi highlighting that those obstacles that surround paradise are what? Firstly, he highlights ijtihad fil ibadat, striving in actions of obedience. The Fajr prayer, the 5 daily prayers, Salatul Isha, coming to Jum'ah, fasting Ramadan, performance of Hajj. How many Muslims do we find at this stage talking about great big causes, etc.? Come to Salatul Fajr. Simple question, ask them. Muslims get so excited. Tahriq al-isba' fi tashahhud. How fast to move the finger in tashahhud. How to do Raful Yadayn, how to say Ta'min Khalf al-Imam. Wallahi, these are the only things we've been stigmatized with. That's the only thing that we know. Is that all the da'wah of the Sunnah is? Is that all that we know? Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, the hadith in Bukhari, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, pray as you see me praying. That becomes a mi'yar, that becomes a symbol. That's the only symbol that we know. That as long as you do these certain actions, you're qualified as a person of Sunnah. Kalla. Total misunderstanding. You make a critique of those people, but those elderly individuals come to Salatul Fajr, you find them there. You find them there, and where are those young youth who are talking about the return of Islam, the renaissance of Islam, the resurgence of Islam? Salatul Fajr, where do you find them? Sleeping in their beds. That's a reality. Great dreams, but can't even stroll out of their bed and come to the masjid. And they talk about big achievements. That's how you weigh up the state of the Muslim Ummah. Travel through the Muslim Ummah, come into Salatul Fajr, and you'll see what the state of the Muslim Ummah is. Sleeping. That's the real state of the Muslim Ummah. Stagnation. The Muslim Ummah revolves around spirituality. Remember that in great detail. Obviously there's other elements that we need, but spirituality is the main cause. We don't fight with weaponry, or power, or force. That's just a side element. The real power and the force of the believer is his devotion towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if people are not even punctual in the 5 daily prayers and they're talking about high obstacles or high achievements, they've misunderstood Islam. Because even in the realms inside Surah Al-Nisa, even the state of jihad that you find, the Quran still says to the believers that one group should be leading and one group should be standing behind it, and they swap positions. This is the station of fighting the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here we find trivial things. I'm moving from this location to that location, combine my prayers, skip my prayers, shorten my prayers, going to university, going here, going there. The first thing in the Hadith Tabrani, أول ما يحاسب العبد يوم القيامة, the first thing the abd will be asked about the day of judgment is his prayer. Khalas. Not about other things. That's the first thing all of us will be asked about. If that has been rectified, everything else will become successful. Sifatul Mu'mineen, characteristics of the believers inside Surah Al-Mu'minun, the 23rd chapter of the Quran. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Simple, that's the characteristics of the believers. Many times inside the Quran, those who guard their prayers, preserve their prayers, worried about their prayers. Guard your prayers. حَافِظُوا لَلصَّلَوَاتِ وَالصَّلَاةِ الْوُسْطَى وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. Guard your prayers, and especially the middle prayer. قَوْلُ الرَّاجِحُ وَالصَّلَاةُ الْعَصْرِ. Guard the middle prayer. In Hadith we find whoever misses the middle prayer, the late afternoon prayer, is that they lost their whole, their wealth, all of their family. But we find it trivial, and we talk about other elements. That's the first path to paradise, to be worried about that. Secondly, Imam Nawawi mentions Qadhmul Ghayb, to swallow one's anger. How many Muslims you find are able to swallow their anger? Whoever debates with a person, whoever goes into an argument with a person, and you know that you are correct, you know that you're correct, but you refuse to carry an argument with a person, you restrain yourself, that person is guaranteed a place in paradise, a house in paradise. But when we're debating with someone, we just have to make sure we get the message across. You've just missed your house in paradise. You've missed it. You've missed it. And sometimes you could be debating and you are wrong, but you want to carry on debating just to send home the message. So swallowing one's anger is a characteristic of the powerful person to go into paradise. Thirdly, al-afu, pardoning people. That's something we've forgotten from the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, to overlook people's mistakes, to pardon them, not to question them about it. Anas ibn Malik narrates, "Qadamtu an-nabiyya sallallahu alayhi wa sallam 10 I served him for 10 years. 10 years. In that 10-year period, he never said to me, why do you do that? Why didn't you do it like that? Why don't you do it like this? Tasawwaru hada. 10 sinin, 10 years. We don't have sabr with a person for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes we don't have sabr with a person. He had 10 years of being in the suhbah of the companionship of the Prophet. He never saw anything. Never questioning about what he done. Could have been doing it wrong? No problem. Forgiveness, to pardon humanity. Something we've forgotten. That is a path to paradise. Fourthly, you find as-sabr an ash-shahawat, to control yourself from temptations which are presented in front of you. Any path of temptation that comes in front of you, have sabr, patience, to not fall into temptations. As we mentioned, temptations are a path that leads you towards Jahannam. So this is all the path that a person needs to begin to think upon. That in this journey upon this word, that I need to begin to follow the path of the people of paradise. If I want to become amongst the people of paradise, or to have the final abode of entering into paradise. And as we know that the Quran, as we began, has that fine balance. That ayat which talk about the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kataba rabbukum ala nafsihi rahmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written it upon himself, he's going to be merciful. A lot of Muslims, they sway towards that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Ghafur rahim. No problem, I've done this, I've done that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me. But look at the tawazun. At the same time you find many of those ayat which talk about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. He's severe in punishment. Stern and harsh. Those ayat, then we begin to miss them. Ayatul Zajr, Ayatul Adab, verses of punishment, verses of warning, severe warning. So we need to balance it out. Not just go towards the compassionate side and then begin to become neglectful of our actions. So that's why we need to find that balance, focusing upon both ayat. That's the Prophet Muhammad mentioned. If you knew what I knew, لَضَحِكْتُمْ قَلِيلًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. If you knew what I knew, you would laugh seldom, you would hardly ever laugh, and you would weep often. Because remember, the Prophet visualized both paradise and he visualized the hellfire. He made that journey through them. And even whilst he was on the earth, paradise exposed him and he went forward to grab a bunch of grapes or the fruit that was presented in front of him. In this dunya was shown to him. Likewise you find the Isra, the night journey that he made. And then he took a step back. And the companions asked him, "You done a strange action today." He said, "The reason I went forward is because I wanted to grab some of the fruit of paradise, presented to me right in front of me. And when I went back, a strand of fire was being presented in front of me, so I went back trying to avoid the fire. So he mentioned that I've got that certainty about the return of paradise and the punishment. And as you find, وَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, the verse at Surah Hud that we find in the 11th chapter of the Quran, and even you read the signs of this surah, it is mentioned, شَيِّبَتْنِ هُودٌ وَأَخَوَاتُهَا. This surah, 11th surah, and other the sister surahs you find, has made my hair go grey. Study these surahs, what do you find inside them? Talk about ayat of adab, of punishment, return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Suyuti in his tafsir al-Durr al-Manthur highlights, after this verse came down, وَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, remain steadfast as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding you to do so. فَمَا رُؤْيَ ضَاحِكًا sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was never seen laughing in his life ever again. Never seen laughing again. When the command came to remain steadfast. And when the Prophet Muhammad would laugh, he would just smile, or very rarely would open his mouth. Today we laugh with our mouths fully open like donkeys. That's what we do, laugh like donkeys, like animals. Because life for many of us has become enjoyment. For many of us Muslims, that's all that life is about.